The story of Group B begins not with speed, but with ambition. In the late 1970s, the FIA Motorsports governing body wanted to breathe new life into international rally racing. Rallying had always been dramatic, with cars flying through forests, snow, and mountain passes, but it lacked a unifying global standard that could push manufacturers to innovate on a massive scale. So, in 1982, the FIA introduced a radical new rulebook, Group B. On paper, it sounded simple. Manufacturers only needed to produce 200 road-legal versions of their rally cars to qualify for competition. There were almost no restrictions on power, technology, or materials. Weight limits were minimal. Engine displacement could be pushed higher with turbocharging, and exotic engineering was not just allowed, it was encouraged. For car makers, this was a dream, no longer shackled by the same strict regulations that had governed earlier rally groups. They suddenly had the freedom to build near-prototype machines for the dirt and tarmac. And with rally racing attracting global attention, it was the perfect stage to show off technological muscle. Almost overnight, Group B became a playground for the boldest ideas in motorsport. Turbochargers, four-wheel drive systems, advanced aerodynamics, and lightweight composites all came rushing in. What was once rallying's earthy mechanical charm transformed into a spectacle of fire-breathing monsters spitting flames and launching off gravel like rockets. At the heart of it all was one simple truth. Group B wasn't about building cars for drivers. It was about building weapons for victory. Crowds soon realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. The sound of a turbocharged engine echoing through mountain valleys was unlike anything the sport had seen before. Cars leapt over blind crests, sliding sideways at speeds that seemed impossible, while spectators lined the stages just inches from disaster, pressed so close they could feel the blast of air as a car tore past. Group B had arrived, and with it came both wonder and fear. The monsters are born. The magic of Group B was that it didn't just create cars, it created legends. With regulations so loose, manufacturers treated the rulebook like a blank canvas. What emerged were machines so wild, so untamed, that they blurred the line between rally cars and fighter jets. The first giant to step forward was Audi. In 1980, before Group B even began, Audi had shocked the world by introducing Quattro all-wheel drive into rallying. At the time, people laughed. Four-wheel drive was for tractors and trucks, they said, not for racing. But when the Quattro hit the dirt, it rewrote the rules. Suddenly, cars could claw for grip on snow, gravel, and mud with a confidence no two-wheel drive car could match. By the time Group B arrived, Audi was ready. The Audi Sport Quattro S1 became one of the most iconic rally cars ever built, armed with a short wheelbase, giant turbo, and nearly 600 horsepower. But Audi wasn't alone. Peugeot unleashed the 205 T16, a small hatchback turned mid-engine monster. On the outside, it looked like a friendly commuter car. Underneath, it was a beast, with advanced suspension, turbocharging, and perfect balance. It would go on to dominate championships. Then there was Lancia, a brand that lived and breathed rallying. Their Lancia 037 was rear-wheel drive, a bold gamble when everyone else was embracing all-wheel drive. And yet, it proved so quick and nimble on tarmac that it won the 1983 World Rally Championship, the last rear-wheel drive car to ever do so. When Lancia followed up with the Delta S4, the madness reached new heights. A twin-charge setup using both a supercharger and a turbo gave it brutal acceleration with almost no lag. Even Ford joined the fray, with the RS200, a car that looked like a futuristic spaceship and was designed from the ground up to be a Group B weapon. It had cutting-edge engineering, but it arrived late to the party. Still, its potential was undeniable. These machines weren't just cars, they were experiments in what happens when you throw away limits. They spat fire from exhausts, screamed with turbo whistles, and accelerated with a violence that seemed impossible on dirt roads. Drivers compared piloting them to riding a bomb with wheels. Spectators, meanwhile, couldn't get enough. They packed into forests and mountains by the tens of thousands, standing dangerously close to the action. When a Group B car roared past, people felt it in their chests. The ground shook, the air filled with the smell of fuel and dust. It was raw, visceral, and addictive, but even as fans cheered, whispers grew louder. Had rallying gone too far? Speed without limits. The golden era on the edge. By the mid-1980s, Group B rallying had transformed from a motorsport into something closer to controlled chaos. Each new season brought faster, lighter, and more extreme machines. What began as 300 to 350 horsepower cars in 1982 had, by 1986, become beasts, pushing over 600, even 700 horsepower, and all of it was being unleashed on narrow, mountain roads, gravel paths, and icy forests, packed with spectators. The insane part? There were virtually no restrictions on technology. Manufacturers experimented with exotic materials like Kevlar and carbon fiber to shave off weight. Turbochargers grew massive, delivering brutal power surges. Some cars, like the Lancia Delta S4, even used twin charging, a supercharger, to eliminate turbo lag, and a Turbo 2, provide insane top-end boost. This made them accelerate like nothing else of the era. The numbers still sound absurd today. A Group B car could go 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 3 seconds, not on a racetrack, but on gravel, snow, or mud. Top speeds of over 120 to 140 miles per hour were common on rally stages where a single mistake meant a plunge off a cliff or into a crowd. Drivers often described the experience as barely controllable, a constant fight between raw power and survival, and the fans, they adored it. Group B rallies became festivals of danger. Tens of thousands of spectators would line the stages, often standing inches from the racing line. As the cars roared through, people would pull back at the very last second, or sometimes not at all. There are countless photographs of rally fans brushing their jackets against the sides of passing cars, so close they could smell the unburned fuel. It was exhilarating, but it was also terrifying. The spectacle reached its peak with legendary duels. Walter Röhrl in the Audi Quattro, Ari Vatanen in the Peugeot 205 T16, Henri Toivonen in the Lancia Delta S4, names that became immortalized in motorsport history. The battles weren't just about winning. They were about taming machines that seemed more alive than mechanical. Drivers compared the cars to wild animals, thrilling when under control, lethal when they slipped away. But beneath the cheers, insiders began to worry. The speeds were escalating too quickly. The technology was outrunning safety. Stages weren't designed for cars this fast. Marshals couldn't control the crowds, and the margin for error was razor thin. Everyone knew the line between spectacle and catastrophe was growing thinner with every rally. Group B had become the ultimate rush for drivers, manufacturers, and fans alike. But as history would soon show, nothing this extreme can last forever. Tragedy strikes, the beginning of the end. For all the glory, noise, and spectacle of Group B, its downfall came swiftly and brutally. The early 1980s had given the world the most outrageous rally machines ever built, but by 1985 and 1986, the warnings were no longer whispers. They were screams. The cars were simply too fast, the crowds too uncontrollable, and the consequences of a single mistake too devastating to ignore. The first cracks in the dream appeared in 1985. At the Rally of Portugal, a Ford RS200 lost traction on a packed stage. The driver fought for control, but the car plowed into the sea of spectators that lined the roadside. Rally fans, desperate to witness the spectacle, often stood just inches from flying cars, parting at the last second. This time, the gamble failed. Dozens were injured, and tragically, several were killed. The aftermath was chilling images of broken bodies, twisted metal, and stunned silence spread across newspapers. Worldwide, rallying had always been dangerous, but this was different. For the first time, the spectacle was overshadowed by tragedy, and yet, the FIA, the governing body of motorsport, hesitated. The crowds kept coming, filling mountainsides and villages in their tens of thousands. Manufacturers, locked in an arms race, kept building even faster, more powerful machines. The sport was addicted to its own danger, and the world couldn't look away. Group B had become a fire that burned too brightly, and no one dared to extinguish it. Then came the moment that sealed its fate, the 1986 Tour de Corse in Corsica. Henri Toivonen, one of rally's brightest young stars, was at the wheel of the radical Lancia Delta S4. Toivonen was a driver of extraordinary talent, known for his fearlessness and ability to extract speed where others hesitated. But even he admitted that Group B was spiraling out of control. Just days before, he warned that the cars were becoming uncontrollable death traps. His words would prove prophetic. On a narrow mountain stage lined with cliffs and unforgiving terrain, disaster struck. Toivonen's Delta S4 veered off the road and plunged into a ravine. The impact ruptured the fuel system, and the car exploded into a fireball. There were no spectators to blame, no unusual circumstances to soften the blow. This was one of the best drivers in the world, in one of the most advanced machines ever built, and it had simply overpowered human limits. Toivonen and his co-driver, Sergio Cresto, were killed instantly. The wreckage told a story more powerful than any statistic. The blackened shell of the Lancia Delta S4 became a haunting symbol of everything that had gone wrong with Group B. What was once seen as innovation and bravery was now seen as recklessness and excess. The image of the scorched car on that Corsican mountainside spread like wildfire, turning excitement into grief and admiration into fear. Almost overnight, the atmosphere shifted. What once thrilled now terrified. Manufacturers began to question the cost of competing in a sport where lives were being lost at such a rate. Fans who once crowded the stages in celebration stood in silence, mourning their fallen heroes. Rallying was no longer just dangerous, it was deadly beyond reason. The FIA could no longer stand still. Just weeks after Toivonen's death, they made the announcement that shocked the motorsport world. Group B would be banned at the end of the 1986 season. There would be no second chances, no slow fade. The era of unrestrained power, turbocharged insanity, and engineering freedom was over. For many, it felt like waking from a dangerous dream. Group B had given rallying some of its most unforgettable moments, cars flying through forests like missiles, drivers taming beasts that seemed untamable, fans witnessing history in real time. But it had also demanded the ultimate price. The tragedies of Portugal and Corsica were proof that the line between brilliance and catastrophe had been crossed. Group B was gone, but its legend had only just begun. The era may have ended in fire and silence, but the echoes of those machines, the scream of turbos, the roar of engines, the sight of fearless drivers defying the impossible will live on forever. The aftermath and legacy, how Group B still shapes motorsport today. When the FIA swung the axe on Group B in 1986, it was as though an entire generation of motorsport had been erased overnight. Cars that had been painstakingly engineered, technological marvels like the Audi Quattro S1, Peugeot 205 T16, and Lancia Delta S4 were instantly relegated to history. Manufacturers were furious, teams disbanded, and fans mourned the end of the most electrifying show rally had ever known. But Group B didn't simply vanish, it transformed into legend. The sheer madness of the era became folklore, retold in hushed tones by those lucky enough to witness it firsthand. VHS tapes circulated among enthusiasts, grainy footage of fire-breathing monsters sliding through snowbanks and threading impossibly narrow mountain passes at speeds that seemed suicidal. Even today, millions of YouTube views keep the ghost of Group B alive, reminding younger generations why it was called the golden era of rally. The ban also reshaped rallying forever. Group B's replacement, Group A, brought safer, more controlled regulations. Cars like the Lancia Delta Integrales, Subaru Impreza WRX, and Mitsubishi Lancer Evo were born in its wake, still fast and spectacular, but a world apart from the untamed beasts of the mid-1980s. Rallying became more sustainable, but some would argue it also became tamer, less dangerous, and perhaps less magical. For the engineers, Group B was both a heartbreak and a proving ground. The lessons learned in turbocharging, lightweight materials, and advanced all-wheel drive systems filtered into road cars. Modern performance vehicles, from hot hatches to supercars, owe a huge debt to the experiments of Group B. What was once considered too wild for rally stages became the foundation of technologies we now take for granted. For the drivers, Group B created legends. Men like Walter Röhrl, Ari Vatanen, Juha Kankkunen, and Henry Toivonen became immortalized. Their feats in those machines, often skimming the edge of disaster, are still spoken of with awe. The bravery required to strap into a 600-horsepower rocket with no electronic aids, minimal safety gear, and a crowd of spectators only inches away is almost unthinkable today. And then there's the culture. Group B became more than motorsport, it became myth. It symbolized a time when rules were looser, risks were higher, and imagination ran free. Car enthusiasts still plaster posters of flame-spitting Quattros on their walls, and video games like Colin McRae, Rally and Dirt introduced its legacy to new audiences. Every time a turbo whistles or a WD system claws at the dirt, Group B's spirit whispers in the background. In the end, Group B rallying was a paradox. It was too dangerous to survive, yet too iconic to ever be forgotten. The FIA may have banned the cars, but they couldn't erase the memories, the legends, or the lasting influence on motorsport and car culture. Group B was more than just an era. It was proof of what happens when human ambition, technology, and danger collide at full throttle. It lived fast, burned bright, and died young, and that's exactly why its legacy will never fade. Group B, gone forever, yet immortal. Group B wasn't just rally, it was madness on wheels. For 4 short years between 1982 and 1986, these machines rewrote the laws of physics, pushed drivers beyond the limits of human control, and gave fans a spectacle that motorsport has never been able to replicate. It wasn't just racing, it was chaos, beauty, and terror rolled into one unforgettable era. Imagine it. Lightweight cars barely tipping the scales at 900 kilograms, strapped with engines boosted to over 500 horsepower, and that was just the official figure. Some factory monsters like the Audi Quattro S1, the Lancia Delta S4, and the Peugeot 205 T16 were pumping out closer to 600 to 700 horsepower. Add all-wheel drive, massive turbochargers, and aero designs that looked like they were sculpted by mad scientists, and you had rockets disguised as rally cars. On paper, it was genius. In practice, it was nearly uncontrollable. Drivers would launch from gravel, ice, or tarmac, reaching 100 kilometers per hour in under 3 seconds. Crowds lined the stages, so closely you could feel the cars slicing through the air past human fingertips. There were no fences, no real barriers, just raw speed and courage. To many fans, it was the most electrifying motorsport ever created. To officials, it was a ticking time bomb. And the truth is, Group B lived and died by the same sword: excess, the very freedom that allowed engineers to push the boundaries. Also created cars that outpaced safety. Brakes overheated, suspensions cracked, and flames roared from turbochargers the size of dinner plates. Drivers described them as beasts that could never truly be tamed. A slight mistake at 200 kilometers per hour on a narrow mountain road didn't just mean losing a race, it meant losing everything. Tragically, that danger soon became reality. Fatal accidents began to stack up. Henry Toivonen and co-driver Sergio Cresto's horrific crash at the 1986 Tour de Corse being the breaking point. Their Lancia Delta S4 veered off the road, exploded, and left no survivors. It was the moment that broke the FIA's resolve. Group B, once celebrated as the pinnacle of rally engineering, was declared too fast, too dangerous, and ultimately too costly in human lives. The ban was swift. By the end of 1986, Group B was gone forever. But here's the twist. The ban didn't kill Group B's legend, it immortalized it. For enthusiasts, Group B became motorsport's forbidden fruit. The very fact that it was too extreme to survive gave it a mythical aura. Audi's Quattro S1 with its rocket ship wings, the fire-breathing Lancia S4 with both turbo and supercharger, Peugeot's all-conquering 205 T16, all these cars became cult icons, machines that seemed almost supernatural in their power. Their presence still looms large at every historic rally event, every motorsport documentary, every whispered conversation among fans and their influence. It's everywhere. The technology born in Group B didn't vanish. It trickled into the cars we drive today. All-wheel drive systems, turbocharged engines, advanced aerodynamics. What was once considered dangerous experimentation became the backbone of modern performance cars. Every Subaru WRX, every Mitsubishi EVO, every Audi RS owes part of its DNA to those rally monsters of the 1980s. Even the culture of motorsport changed because of Group B. Fans learned that speed, without limits, could deliver unmatched thrills, but also devastating consequences. Manufacturers learned that engineering brilliance meant nothing if safety was ignored. Regulators learned that boundaries were necessary, not just to protect drivers, but to protect the sport itself. And yet, despite all the lessons, Group B continues to haunt motorsport like a ghost. Watch old footage, and you'll see why. The sights are surreal cars, flying over crests, flames spitting from exhausts, engines screaming like banshees while crowds part like seas just inches away. It feels less like organized racing and more like controlled insanity. Nothing before or since has matched that energy. That's why, decades later, Group B is still talked about, not with regret, but with reverence. Fans don't just remember it, they worship it. Every time a rally car launches off the line with a turbo spool, every time flames crackle out of an exhaust on a midnight run, every time a WD grip pulls a machine through impossible corners, Group B lives again. Too fast to control, too dangerous to last, too iconic to forget. Group B may have been banned forever, but its echo still roars across the world of motorsport. It's a reminder that sometimes greatness doesn't come from balance or caution. It comes from excess, from pushing the limits so far that the world has no choice but to stand back in awe. Group B gone forever, yet immortal. If you enjoyed this incredible story, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more epic automotive adventures. Your support keeps these stories alive.